everyone, welcome back to the Analyst of Vajiram and Ravi, where we bring to you detailed discussion of important news articles from both the Hindu and Indian Express. Today is 21st of November and here are the following articles that we shall be covering. In the first article, we will cover about the very unfortunate tunnel collapse in the Uttarkashi district of Uttarakhand and the ongoing rescue operations. Next, we will read about an upcoming legislation in the health sector of India. This is National Pharmacy Commission Bill. Then in the third one, as the seasons of elections have started in India, as responsible citizens, we will read about what are the model code of conducts. Next, from the point of art and culture, we will read about the handicraft textiles in India, which are in news and have also been asked by UPSC in the prelims examination. And from mapping point of view, we will do the coverage of the very disputed South China Sea. So let's get started. So the highlight of the day is the installation of a 6-inch pipe to help the people who have been trapped in this collapsed tunnel. This tunnel is the Silkiara tunnel, which is in the Uttarkashi district of Uttarakhand. Since a disaster has happened, so this corresponds to GS3 part of the syllabus where we have to read about disasters, both man-made and natural disaster and their prevention and disaster management strategies. Alright, so first of all, let's try to understand the context and what has happened so far. So a tunnel has collapsed. Which tunnel is this and where do this belongs to? So this is the Silkiara tunnel, which was basically meant to connect two sides within the Uttarkashi district. The one side was the Silkiara side and the second one was the Dandalgaon side. Dandalgaon, or also known as the barcode side. So it was supposed to connect both of these sides. It was an under construction project. Already a lot of part has been constructed, but about 400 meters of construction was left and this is where the collapse happened. Now, why was this tunnel, infrastructure development of this tunnel was taking place? The reason is that there's an ongoing Char Dham connectivity project going on, where the government is trying to widen and shorten the distance between the Char Dhams of the Uttarakhand district. So, in order to facilitate that, there was one more tunnel that was considered one of the longest tunnels under the Char Dham project, a double lane tunnel basically of 4.5 kilometers. This was getting constructed in the Uttarkashi district in order to narrow down the journey distance from Uttarkashi to Yamunotri Dham, that is one of the dhams of the Char Dham circuits. Now, this was under construction as we know. It was already constructed a lot from the Silkiara side. A lot has been constructed. 1.5 kilometers of tunneling work has already been done from the barcode side. Only a little part of it was left and that's when the collapse happened. What were the reasons of the collapses that we will read in the next slide. But anyway, if you identify the collapse site, this is near to the main central thrust of the upper Himalayas. What are these? We will read. But before that, a 270 meter distance from the entrance side of the Silkiara region. Here is where the tunnel collapse happened. The current situation is that the workers have found to be safe, they are unharmed and they are being contacted through a walkie-talkie. Food and other services and communication channels have been provided through a compression pipe. So we have already seen that a successful installation of a pipe has taken place here. So this is a good news for us. Now let's learn about the Char Dham project of which this tunnel was a part of. So this was a infrastructure development project. Actually, it was a highway expansion project in order to widen the existing highways connecting the different dhams, in order to provide all-weather connectivity to the tourists across these 4 dhams, across also connecting it with the central capital, that is the Delhi. Then it was basically to widen their width up to 889 kilometers. This information is not very crucial for us, but just to give you an idea of it, we have given this data. Next, the Uttarakhand's major 4 shrines, the Char Dhams. Which are these? These are the Badrinath, then there is Kedarnath, then there is Gangotri and Yamunotri. You must also remember the sequence from east to west because this can be asked by UPSC. Now, as we know that all of these shrines are prevalent in or are placed in the upper Himalayan region and this is the reason why the tunnel faulter has happened. The Himalayan region, as we know, is very tectonically active, very vulnerable, very sensitive to any kind of tremors. And because the tectonic activity is going on, and why is it going on? Because our Indian plate is continuously coming under the moving Eurasian plate, and therefore a lot of seismic tremors in the form of earthquakes are upsurging, and this is affecting the tectonic stability of this region, especially the Himalayan region, which is where the development is taking place. So because our Himalaya is already fragile, experts have said that creating such large infrastructure projects, for example, a multi-purpose project, for example, infrastructure project, such massive large-scale projects are already not viable in a very fragile Himalayan ecosystem. So that was a big red flag, that why did we take an unsustainable development of such a massive project in Himalayan region. Now, the other reasons which have caused and possibly have caused the tunnel collapse would be the nature of the rocks. See, in the Himalayan regions, they dominantly have the sedimentary form of rock, which are having the lowest durability or the durability strength as compared to the other forms of rock. For example, if you go to the Deccan Plateau, you will see granitic rocks. These are very, very strong rocks. But when it comes to sedimentary rocks, which are more prevalent in the Himalayan region, they can get easily fractured. They can develop a lot of joints and cracks. So suppose this is a tunnel and these are the rocks underneath and beneath it. So here, if a lot of joints and cracks starts getting developed, the stability of this rock will be compromised and it will not be able to take up a lot of overload which is given upon it, either due to infrastructure development or due to load given by another overlying rocks. So therefore, it becomes very easy for such rocks to collapse and also collapse the underlying tunnel. So the nature and the fragility of the rock was the first reason. The second reason would be the water seepage. Now, as we know, in the Himalayan region, it is prominently dominated by a lot of glaciers, a lot of streams. All of them are perennial in nature. Some of the streams can seep into these joints. It can increase the porosity, decrease the durability, the overall strength of the rock, and therefore the collapse will become highly likely. Next is the prevalence of main central thrust. Now this is a very major fault which is occurred because of the plate tectonic, where the Indian plate is going beneath the European plate, as we have already seen. Now here some of the faults have been created, which have become very active zones for seismic tremors. And because this pass and the other central thrust are few kilometers north and northwest to the MCT, therefore this incident was also very likely in a very, very active region. Next was the lack of geological and geotechnical studies. So experts have also alleged that before taking up this project, proper studies have not been performed. For example, the petrographic studies, for example, seismic radiation waves analysis was not done in order to understand the durability, the ability of the rock to take the load over it. All of this was not appropriately identified, not appropriately analyzed, and therefore lack of planning, lack of designing, and over construction, overburdening has led to this particular failure or this human disaster. Experts have said that there are two broad kinds of incidents which mostly takes place in Uttarakhand. First is the sudden release of large amount of water. This is what we know as flash flood. And in this year, you must have heard a lot of news about flash floods. Now, this is because a lot of unsustainable development or infrastructure, massive infrastructure projects have been created. For example, the Teesta River flash flood of 2004. Now, this was a very massive outbreak, a very massive flash flood, which led to loss of significant number of lives. Second would be the rock sharing. Now, rock sharing is because these are sedimentary rocks, and because they get sheared in between, the stress and strain that gets developed between the rock, these are responsible for breaking off their stability. The slipping off takes place, and as a result, the underlying projects, for example, the roads, the dams, the tunnels, in this case, all of them collapses. So, Tehri Hydro Project tunnel collapse has been seen in the year of 2004. So, these are some of the examples which have already proven us that Himalayan regions are considerably fragile and they need to be taken care of. So, what can we do to ensure that there is safe tunnel construction in the country? First and foremost, we will see what are the existing Indian efforts in this regard. So India understood that in order to create tunnels, because we need to create transport and connectivity and logistic movement in the Himalayan region, which is geographically challenged, we definitely need tunnel construction. We also need expertise, we also need capacity building, research and development in this regard. For that, it provided for the creation of tunnel zone department within the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. So we have got a dedicated department which is performing the convergence work and performing the capacity building. Next is the constitution of an expert committee in case some technical issues arises revolving around the tunnel construction, tunnel designing or tunnel vulnerability or viability in a particular area. Next is the Indian standard codes which have been applied. Now these are some of the standards and regulations according to which the tunnels have to be created, and it is a mandatory norm for the company in order to win the bid to comply within these standard codes. There is also compliance of an international IRC code for the tunnel construction which India adheres to as well. But even after we are doing all these things, we are falling short of some of the other measures that needs to be taken up. First is, we should perform a detailed geotechnical studies so that we can prevent the disaster, we can understand the vulnerability of the rock or the potency or the potential of the rock to bear that much amount of infrastructural load. So comprehensive petrographic analysis, petro stands for rock and graphic stands for studies. So petrographic is the detailed study of the rocks strata by strata. So in this manner, a very detailed study, micrographic level study is done of the rocks, and thereby whatever we have studied, whatever we have understood or calculated about the suitability of the rocks, therefore in those lines we should try to create the designing and the construction phases of the further infrastructure projects, for example tunnels. Next, regular monitoring by specialist geologists should be done. Planning is not enough, studies and analysis is not enough, regular monitoring. For example, if you're preparing for the exam, if you're not monitoring your everyday targets or completion of the targets, then we are more likely to falter away. Similarly, in this condition also, the monitoring is very important. For that, we need an independent oversight which is autonomous. We also need to identify the potential failures and assess the rock's stand-up time. This will help us to understand the viability of developing the infrastructure in that area. Next, to test the adequacy of the tunnel supports. Tunnel is not a standalone system. It is augmented by a lot many supporting mechanisms. For example, the shotcrete or the rock bolt, steel cribs, tunnel pipe umbrellas, all of them provide structural stability to the tunnel. So we also need to ensure that they are working properly as well. Why and how? By testing them priorly. Next, safe evacuation arrangement needs to be made. As I have already told you time and again, a disaster or a hazard cannot be turned into a disaster if it is not affecting lives and property. And why this hazard has become a disaster? Because it has involved human lives also now. So first and foremost thing to do in order to manage or prevent any disaster is to have a robust evacuation plan, rapid response plan, so that we can safeguard the lives. For that, rapid installment of the NDRF or the National Disaster Response Force and the State Disaster Response Force, that's very important. Then mandatory submission of the standards or a safety plan should be given or should be accrued upon the construction companies if they want to win the project bid. This is another thing that we should ensure. And then in the age of modern age technology, why are we not utilizing the technologies, for example, the GPS, the sensors, the data analytics, etc., in order to provide real-time assessment, real-time monitoring, the data analytics and early warning systems so that we can perform quick evacuation and quick action against such potential disasters. So this was all about Uttarkashi tunnel collapse. Coming to the next topic, this is talking about National Pharmacy Commission Bill. Now this has been put by the ministry in the discussion stage. You can also participate in it. So Health Ministry has released the National Pharmacy Commission Bill. Here we are going to deal with GS2 part of the syllabus, reading about the health and government policies and interventions therein. Now let's talk about the Indian pharma industry first. Indian pharma industry is also known as the pharmacy of the world. Do you know why? Because we are the largest manufacturers of the generic drugs globally. Not only that, we stand third in rank when it comes to exporting these generic medicines. The total value that we have of the amount of pharma products we have exported is up to 50 billion US dollars, which is huge. Also, when it comes to vaccines, about 60% of the total global vaccine supply has been given by India. The highest number of US FDA compliant pharma plants after USA are existing in India, and more than 3,000 pharma companies are running and practicing in India. Not only that, when we are leading the export, we have made about 200 plus countries dependent on us for their pharma supplies. So this is the stronghold of Indian pharmacy industry. Therefore, taking care of the health of Indian pharma industry is very important because it has implications on global healthcare. Also, because there is one more feature of Indian pharmacy, is that it has got low costs and high quality, which makes it very suitable for the global poor as well. So, taking care of the Indian pharmacy industry will ensure that we are having accessible pharmacy, we are having affordable pharmacy, and we are having sustainable pharmacy. So therefore, we need to ensure the health of the Indian pharmacy. But then of late, there has been some depressing trends that we can observe. These trends shows that a series of safety and quality issues have prevailed in the Indian pharmacy industry, which can be highlighted from the following events. So in January 2020, a contaminated vaccine killed about 20 children in Jammu and Kashmir region. Now, it was contaminated by diethylene glycol. This is very harmful for the health, especially affecting the kidney organ of human body, leading to death. Not only that, in March 2021, the NICUP syrup was seen to be of substandard type, which means that the amount of active ingredients that would have been given in the medicine or in this particular syrup, in order to increase or in order to make it efficient against the disease, those particular amount of ingredients were found to be of lower levels. Therefore, the low active ingredients led to loss of not only the manufacturer, also because there was loss in the demand, but also it led to wastage of money of the people, and also it led to some harmful effects, or in many cases near to no effects. So the substandardized delivery of the medicine is also one of the issues plaguing the Indian pharmacy. Next is, in October 2022, WHO alert on contaminated products that was sold from an Indian company to Gambia, which also led to death of more than 11 people over there. Then in December 2022, the Central Drug Control Authority probed into the cases of Uzbekistan, where the drug delivery was done from India, and there it was seen that there were many deaths due to the cough syrup delivered from the Indian industry. This flags us the concerns or the issues that are prevalent in Indian pharmacy industry. But what are the underlying causes? The underlying causes of the issues prevalent in Indian pharmacy industry are follows. But to begin with the basics, let's start with the type of education that we are delivering. The first and the foremost reason for the lack of quality and standards matching in Indian pharmacy industry is the lack of quality education, the lack of affordability and accessibility of the quality education. It can be seen that while a person wants to get educated in the pharmacy field, he finds it very limited. He finds a number of institutions, a number of accredited institutions which are affordable in nature to be very less in number. Even if he goes to those, he finds that these are distributed unevenly across the country. For example, in the northeast regions, in the northern India, you will not find a lot of pharma related companies, academia, etc. But in the southern region, in the southwestern region of India, there is more proliferation. Then, even if you have managed to get into an institution, what assures that the quality of faculty is top notch? What assures that there is industry relevant expertise imparted by the faculty that is teaching? Next, the affordability. Affordability further deprives the economically weaker sections of the society to take or to pursue their career in the field of pharmacy, especially the private educations that are providing pharmacy courses are too expensive. So affordability is one issue. Then the curriculum that is being taught right now is not in consonance, is not in synchronization with the current updation of the pharmacies. Therefore, there is outdated curriculum. And then as we know that research in India is already performing quite poorly. And so is in the case of pharma that there is limited research and also limited integration of the existing researchers. Second would be the lack of adequate regulation that is currently existing. The pharma sector is managed and regulated by the Drug and Cosmetics Act of 1940, which is not in compliance with the current complexities of the pharma sector, of the health sector of the world. So therefore it is lacking behind. It is quite old of a regulation which needs to be revised. And second, the enforcement of this regulation is also quite poor. There is incomplete coverage. A lot of things like clinical trials, etc. are not covered. Palliative care, etc. are not covered in this legislation. So it is quite inadequate as well. There is weak enforcement, and also this has led to creation of multiple statutory bodies, multiple bodies which are in state levels or which are in central level. All of them are having fragmented and discrete jurisdiction. So there is lack of convergence also. So these are some of the regulatory related issues prevalent in pharmacy industry. Next is the lack of awareness and compliance from both government, from both the people who are consuming it and also from the producers or the companies. Now there is non-adherence in the sides of company. They are not adhering to the standard codes, guidelines, regulations that are given by the government and the international standards. They are also performing some of the unethical practices by producing cheaper medicines by lowering on the amount of active ingredients. For example, we have seen in this particular case in the Nycup syrup. Then there is, which are known as the substandard kind of medicines. Then there is also counterfeiting of the medicine where you are intentionally contaminating it by ethylene glycol or dimethylene glycol, which leads to fatalities like deaths among the people. So this has grave impact on the health. Next, adulterated medicines so that they can have low cost and they can have maximum profit. So this profit orientation is often leading to resortment of unethical practices by the pharma companies. But who are they accountable to? Because the quality control systems are also very weak in the country, both from the sides of government and both from the side of company. And also there is very weak grievance redressal mechanism. So therefore, the responsiveness and due to the lack of absent structure of the hierarchy which needs to be followed in order to have your grievance redressal is also quite complex. So therefore, it becomes very difficult to have proper compliance of the rules that are already made by the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. And last but not the least, there is insufficient recognition of the palliative care. Palliative care, see, there are two types of medical things going on. First is the medical treatment. So if you're suffering from a disease, you'll be given some medicines, you'll be given some diagnosis. All of this comes under medical treatment. But it should also be supported by medical care. And this medical care is known as palliative care, where you're not only given the physical care, but also psychological support, but also emotional support, spiritual support, and also your nutritional needs to be taken care of, and not just of yours but also of your family. So a holistic well-being is ensured by the palliative care, which is largely ignored in Indian dimension. So how does the National Pharmacy Commission Bill address these issues that are prevalent? Let's have a look. First and foremost, it seeks to repeal the Pharmacy Act of 1948, which led to the creation of Pharmacy Council of India. So now it will be replacing this Pharmacy Council of India with a national commission with more autonomy so that it can converge across multiple authorities and provide a standardized rule, regulation and code for the pharmacy companies to follow and adhere to. What are the objectives? It's quite natural to provide access to quality and affordable pharmacy education, to also ensure that there is availability and thorough and uniform accessibility of the pharmacy professionals across the India, then to promote equitable and universal health care as well. Now, what are the provisions that are given by the National Pharmacy Commission? First and foremost is the establishment of a centralized commission, more autonomous, more powerful commission, the National Pharmacy Commission. But alongside, there will be periodic and transparent assessment of the pharmacy institutions that will be done by this commission. There will be ensurement of ethical standards in all the aspects. There will be establishment of a Pharmacy Register of India, which will be maintained by the Pharmacy Ethics and Registration Board of the government. Next, there is encouragement of the latest pharmacy research and also encouragement of integration across the world's best practices. Then, ensuring transparency by documenting details of pharmacy professional. How are we going to do so? By having a centralized Pharmacy Register of India. It also ensures that there is palliative care, because for the first time in a legislation, palliative care has also been recognized as a financial distress reducer of the patient. So these are some of the provisions of National Pharmacy Commission Bill. The bill is still in the discussion stage. Let us see how it unfolds itself. Coming to the next topic, here we will discuss about the Model Code of Conduct as Shabnam Mausi, India's first transgender MLA. This is important from state PCS perspective, this particular fact of Shabnam Mausi. Anyway, Shabnam Mausi has been booked for the violation of Model Code Conduct. Now, first of all, what is the Model Code of Conduct? To explain it to you very easily or very simply, this is basically a set of code or a set of guidelines that are produced by or that are published by Election Commission of India in order to make you follow a particular set of conduct or expected conduct during or prior. So, prior to or during the elections of India. So these are certain set of codes, certain set of guidelines that a person is expected to be following during the elections in the India. This is formulated by ACI. ECI or Election Commission of India is a constitutional body, a watchdog of the elections of India. And why is it taking concerns of the MCC, which is the Model Code of Conduct? Because it is mandated under the Article 324 of the Indian Constitution to ensure free and fair elections in the country. And in order to make sure that that is happening, they impose certain ethical standards, ethical guidelines, which are named as MCC or Model Code of Conduct. Now, Model Code of Conduct is enforced by ECI. Is it legally enforceable? No. Model Code of Conduct as of now in India is not legally enforceable, but some provisions of it can be enforced using some other provisions that are given in statutes like IPC, CRPC and Representations of People Act 1951. So yes, there exist some exceptions. Now, when is the Model Code of Conduct imposed? So it commences from the date of announcement of the election schedule by the Election Commission of India. That is when the MCC gets applied, and that is when the political parties and the candidates that are electing or that are representing themselves and the political party workers as well, they have to start adhering to these ethical code of conduct or the Model Code of Conducts. Now, where is this particular MCC applied? So that varies according to the type of election. So if it is a general election of Lok Sabha, then it is applied throughout the country. If it is a general election inside the legislative assembly of a state, then it is applied in that particular state. If it is a by-election, then only the constituent assembly that is concerned where the by-election is getting conducted, only their MCC will be applied and not in the entire state. So with that clarity, now let's jump on to the next dimension, which is the history of Model Code of Conduct. How did it evolve? Now, while ECI is responsible for enforcing the MCC, it is not the brainchild of ECI. In fact, it started for the first time in 1960s during a state election in Kerala. And this was formulated for the first time by the state administration of Kerala and not by ECI. Taking cue from this, taking up this best practice, ECI enforced it in the entire country in the year 1962 Lok Sabha elections. But then from the year 1962 to 1991, while MCC was enforced, a lot of flouting was seen. A lot of unethical behavior was seen. Power disparity was seen between the party in power and the other parties. So therefore, in 1979, in order to bring a level playing field, ECI refined the code and added a section to regulate the parties in power so that they do not abuse and misuse their powers. Then, this code was in 1991 renamed as the Model Code of Conduct, and in 1991, it also started, the ECI started using new means to ensure the enforcement of MCC while also utilizing certain provisions of these statutes, as I have already told. Not only that, the then Election Commission Commissioner T.N. Seshan also exercised his constitutional power under Article 324 to postpone the elections in those regions which were not compliant with the Model Code of Conduct. So here the ECI now started becoming more strict with the enforcement of Model Code of Conduct in the country. Now, what are the provisions of Model Code of Conduct? As an informed citizen, learned citizen, and as aspirants of civil services, we must be aware about the ongoing Model Code of Conduct that is around us and how the different parties, different people, different stakeholders are expected to behave during this time. First of all, the election manifestos, where the parties announce their agendas in the upcoming term, these shall not contain anything against the ideals and the principles of the Indian Constitution. The second is, while they are free to promise about any delivery, any public good, any kind of scheme, but they should be in the containment of rationality. These should be rational promises that are backed by providing the ways and means as to how you are going to get the financial means or the financial resources to fulfill your promises. So they should be not irrational in nature. Second, you are not supposed to provide manifesto or update your manifesto while the MCC or while the prohibitory period of the MCC is going on. What is this prohibitory period? This is defined under the section 126 of the Representation of Peoples Act, which says 2 days or 48 hours before the conclusion of the elections in a particular area, you are supposed to follow or observe the prohibitory period. This is the time where the manifesto cannot be published. Next, there are certain prohibitions which the political parties have to take regards of. So first is, they can have limited criticism. Yes, you can criticize a political opponent or a political party on the basis of his past record, his performance, etc., his schemes, etc. But you cannot take into regards or criticize their identity, their caste, their culture, their class, etc. You cannot do bribing or intimidation of the voters. You cannot have meetings, processions, propagandas, etc. in the places of worship. These features are completely prohibited while MCC is enforced. Next is the meetings and the processions. So while a party wants to have meetings or processions, it needs to have a pre-informed venue and time delivered to the local police authorities. Why? So that they can have prior security related arrangements. Next, in order to avoid clash of procession, there need to be communication between two different political parties which are choosing to opt for the same route in order to move their procession. Second, carrying and burning the effigies of any personality, a leader or an opponent, anybody, a person is not allowed during the procession. It's completely prohibited under MCC. Next, the right of every citizen to a peaceful and undisturbed home life should also be ensured. Should not be very loud. They should not try to usurp the personal areas or encroach upon the personal areas in order to organize their meetings, propagandas or processions. So this is also something that we need to ensure during MCC. And if you see a violation of any, you can report to Election Commission of India. Next, what should happen during polling day? When the polling day is there, the polling booth where the maximum amount of sanctity should be maintained. Here is where only voters are allowed who's going to vote their precious votes. Next, the Election Commission has given passes to the people, and only those people, those pass bearers, those political party workers or political party leaders who are bearing those passes will only be allowed to enter inside the polling booth and nobody else. Next, the ID cards of all the authorized party workers should be there and should be represented and should be made in public so that there is transparency maintained. Next, what about the observers? There are certain observers in order to ensure the transparency of the process which are appointed by the Election Commission of India for reporting the problems regarding the misuse or the malfunction in the conduct, in the Model Code of Conduct. And last but not the least, the provision which came in 1979 when which tried to kind of limit the powers of the party that was the ruling government of the day. So it said that ministers must not combine their official visits with the election work so that they do not utilize the official machineries in their election purposes. Next, the party must avoid advertising at the cost of the public exchequer, at the cost of your and mine money. So they cannot do that. Next, from the time of announcement, You must not announce any financial goods or any kind of scheme that is promising any public good. For example, provision for water supply or construction of a road or any other infrastructure, you cannot do during the prohibitory period. Then, use of public spaces and rest house should be given equitably to all the parties, and it should not be monopolized by the party in power only. So these are some of the provisions given under the Model Code of Conduct of India during the elections. Coming to the next topic, here we will learn about Handicraft Textiles of India. Why are we reading about this? It might sound strange to you, but a question on these has been asked in the UPSC prelims examination, as you can see from here. What is the context behind this? That some of the handicraft textiles have become center of attractions in India International Trade Fair that is getting organized in Delhi right now. So what are some of the beautiful textiles that India owns? First is the Uppad Jamdani saris or Jamdani sari. This is a woven muslin with patterns, and these patterns are such that these motifs appear same from front and reverse side of the sari or the shawl. They basically originated in Bangladesh, and this skill got transferred into the East Godavari district, especially in the Uppad region, in the Uppad village of East Godavari district of Andhra Pradesh, which has also obtained the GI tag for this particular sari, this particular textile weaving pattern, in the year 2009. Not only that, it has also become UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity in the year 2013. And therefore, UPSC has also asked question on this, that Uppad Jamdani saris belong to which region? It was incorrectly matched. The correct answer is Andhra Pradesh. Now we know. This is a classic Uppad Jamdani sari, as you can see from the slide. Next are the Puthukulli shawls. They belong to Tamil Nadu, and they are woven intricately by the Toda tribe, the PVTG tribe of Tamil Nadu. Then the Sujni embroidery, a classical example of sustainability in fabric and clothing. This is where the old fabrics are used as a canvas and they are woven up. This started in the Busura village of Bihar, and this is where it prominently takes place. So this is the Sujni embroidery of Bihar. This question has also been asked. So now you will be able to answer this prelims question. Okay, then there is Batikart. Now while the three of them have been GI tagged, Batikart, the Bandhani or Bandhej and Tanchoi weaving are not yet GI tagged, but we are going to read about it also. So Batikart belongs to Madhya Pradesh and regions of West Bengal. Here the tie and dye technique is used, mostly using the molten wax. And then the entire cloth is dyed, leading to creation of patterns, which you can see from this diagram. Next, there is Bandhani or Bandhej, which literally stands for tying a sari and therefore dyeing it, leading to again creation of multicolored patterns like this one. Then there is a very beautiful satin finish embroidery or a fabric that is created using the Tanchoi weaving, which is brought to India from China in the 19th century in Gujarat, specifically in the Surat region, and this gives a satin finish, as you can see from the diagram, and it also resembles miniature painting. It was generally used by the people who were of upper caste or who were pretty much affluent in the modern India or during the medieval India. Coming to the mapping session, we are going to have a detailed discussion on South China Sea. So what has happened? The dispute has arisen because Philippines has invited Malaysia and Vietnam to discuss separate code of conduct regarding the South China Sea. South China Sea has been very, very important from UPSC point of view. UPSC has obviously asked multiple questions on this time and again. So anyway, before diving into South China Sea, let's look into its periphery area. So as you can see, it belongs to the Western Pacific Ocean to the east of the South Asia. Now, it is surrounded by Taiwan, it is surrounded by China, Vietnam, there is Malaysia, there is Brunei, there is Philippines. And this South China Sea is comprised of some of the coral islands and territories as well. The major ones are the Paracel Island, the Spratly Island and the Scarborough Island. Now these are the areas which are highly contested. What is the reason? So first of all, let us also have a look into some of these straits that are located near it. So there is a Taiwan Strait, there is this Luzon Strait, then there is Malacca Strait somewhere here, there is Gulf of Tonkin, there is also Strait of Hainan. So these are some of the straits surrounding the South China Sea, which makes it very, very important economically as well. Now, as a result of this, you will see that 1/3 of the total global shipping is done across the South China Sea, making it very, very important economically. Next, 1/3 of the marine resources, food resources, minerals are also available over here, and also it has got rich reserves of oil and gases. Therefore, it is a highly contested area. Now, the issue starts with the theory of 9-dash line that is given by China. So China tells us that it has got historical claims in the territory of Paracel Island and the Spratly Island. And because it is said that the region around these islands will also be given to the country which is ruling this island. Because it allegedly claimed these islands, it also says that everything around the 9-dash, as you can see, let me clear off this picture first. So as you can see from this picture, this 9-dash line, everything inside this region and also surrounding this is historically for China, because China has been ruling this particular region since more than 2000 years and it doesn't want to let go of it. But then comes a universal or international treaty, which is the UN Convention on the Laws of Sea of 1994, which said that a country cannot have jurisdiction beyond its exclusive economic zone, as we have already read in the previous session of 17th November. So anyway, when this came, Beijing very quickly rendered its first theory of 9-dash line in the year 1997 and said that all the area that is roughly extended from this Hainan coast of China and thereby the waters of till near Borneo, all of that are completely within the 9-dash line and China has complete jurisdiction over it. Philippines was the first to challenge Chinese claims, saying that it flouted the UN clause laws. And therefore, all this matter went to the arbitration tribunal of the UN clause, and which led to the ruling in favor of Philippines and rejected the China's maritime claim. But we know that China has still got its stronghold in this region because China is performing military installations in this region, extensive dredging, artificial island building. It has created up to 4,000 acres of new land over here, and it is also posting coast guards in the Scarborough Island, which is not even inherited. It doesn't even claim its inheritance to Scarborough Island, still it is trying to expand its influence over there. Such is the Chinese aggression. Now let's talk about these Paracel, Scarborough and Spratly Island and who claims rule over it. So one is the China and second would be Taiwan. So the Paracel Islands are claimed not only by China but also by Taiwan and also by Vietnam, which is in close vicinity to it because it falls under its exclusive economic zone or near to it. Next is the Spratly Islands. So Spratly Islands, as you can see from the location, they are claimed by China, Taiwan. Taiwan is equal claimant of every island along with China. Then there is Vietnam, there is Philippines, and then there is Brunei. Also, the Scarborough Shoal or the Scarborough Island. Now, this is where rich deposits of polymetallic nodules or there is rich deposits of oil and gas is found over here. So, therefore, this is also pretty much contested and it is claimed by Philippines because it falls under its exclusive economic zone. It is claimed by China and it is also claimed by Taiwan. So these are the 3 islands and we shall be reading about South China Sea much in detail in the next session probably, where we will be trying to have a mains coverage of it. So this is all about today's discussion. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.